The prince who was promised, baby. Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars come back to beat the Chargers despite being down 27-20, winning 31-30. I'm going to cover Trevor Lawrence. I'm also going to talk about the Chargers and why Brandon Staley probably should and will be fired and why they're probably going to target Sean Payton. But a funny side note real quick is I was watching the game with my little sister last night, and she's kind of a casual fan. But when they were up 27-0, she said, if I had $1 million, I'd bet $1 million that the Chargers are going to win. Well, somebody last night did do that. They bet $1.4 million when the Chargers were up 27-0 that they would win. And he'd only cash out $11,200, but he thought it was a for sure thing. Well, let's just say that man lost $1.4 million. But I'm going to start out here with a little bit of a rant on Trevor Lawrence. I tweeted out last week, you can follow me at LindseyJohn21, that Trevor Lawrence is top 4 and he's not 4. A lot of people don't agree with that. They thought it was controversial, and they probably still wouldn't agree with it. But I do believe that, and I think at this time next year, Trevor Lawrence is going to be considered the second best quarterback in all of football. From weeks 9 to the end of the regular season this year, he had 15 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, the best touchdown-interception ratio, and led all quarterbacks with basically every statistic. I think people forget how bad of a situation he was in last year, and people just seem to forget all of his pedigree coming from what he did in high school, Gatorade National High School Player of the Year, and winning a championship, national championship, his rookie season. And here's just a recap of what Urban Meyer was, and I can't reinforce this enough, the worst head coach in NFL history. But here's just a recap of what he did in his rookie season as a head coach. Physically abused kickers. His kicker, Josh Lambo, in practice for missing field goals, made Gardner Minshew and Trevor Lawrence split reps all of the offseason just to trade away Gardner Minshew for a 6th-round pick. And then, despite losing on the road in Cincinnati, decided to get a lap dance at a bar instead of flying home with his team. It was an absolute disaster. People thought Trevor Lawrence, though, still did show some hope, but didn't have a great year, especially statistically. And then going into this season, people had high hopes. Some people were already jumping off the ship. But then one person in particular, you know who you are, after watching this motivational speech he had against the Commanders, said, "Did you see that motivational speech? I don't think he could motivate me to make a sandwich." He was already jumping off the ship. But then once he started to play well, he said, "Yeah, he's pretty legit." Yeah, you bet your ass he is. Trevor Lawrence has been unbelievable, and he was again last night. Had a rough start, no doubt. 4 interceptions. But came back and just played absolutely amazing in the second half. And the officiating, too, was atrocious. I mean, awful. I'm usually not one to complain about the refs, but that was a disgrace. The amount of pass interference calls that were missed, the Gerald Everett catch, which was clearly a drop. I do kind of wonder sometimes if Vegas pays off these refs, because that was one of the worst officiating, probably the worst officiating jobs I've ever seen. But now we'll transition to Brandon Staley. His second year with the Chargers, missed the playoffs last year, made it this year, and obviously lost. But a lot of people thought even if they lost, he still might be safe. But definitely if they were to win this game, he would probably be safe. I don't think that's the case anymore. Being up 27-0 and losing, that's probably the worst case scenario. But here's the thing, too. People aren't saying take 2 or 3 years now. Kevin O'Connell, Mike McDaniel, Brian Daboll, all first-year head coaches, and people didn't even think those with teams that didn't make the playoffs last year made the playoffs this year. And even Doug Peterson, with his first, I know he's been a head coach, but he made the playoffs this year too, in his first year with the Jaguars. It's not good enough. And Colin Cowherd always says this, and I really agree with him. If you're a defensive coach or an offensive coach and you go to a team, that side of the ball has to be fixed. And Brandon Staley, defensive guy, that defense has not been fixed. They've invested a lot of money and resources into it, but it hasn't been good. I just think he needs to go. And then last week, too, the Week 18, playing your starters, Mike Williams getting hurt, awful. I mean, that was horrifying. That was terrible decision-making, and that's a guy who didn't play his starters all in the preseason, punted on the preseason, but decided to play Mike Williams, who's had injury problems. I just think Brandon Staley's kind of an idiot, I'll be honest. And then you have somebody like Sean Payton, probably would cost a first-round pick to get him. But you saw what Sean Payton did with Drew Brees. Even somebody like Teddy Bridgewater was able to be okay with Sean Payton. I think he could make Justin Herbert in this offense unlock a new level, and their defense hasn't really been good anyways. But I think even though it would cost a first-round pick, you have Justin Herbert, you have Sean Payton now. It's going to attract a lot of people to want to come to Los Angeles. The team isn't getting any younger, though. You know, Keenan Allen is getting up there in age. Mike Williams continues to get hurt. Their Super Bowl window is next year or the year after that. So they are running out of time. But Brandon Staley just completely awful. And I think Sean Payton makes a lot of sense. And I think I think Brandon Staley will probably be fired by Tuesday. As you can see in the 106.7 studio, if you follow me with any of the shows, thank you. And reach out to me and I'll respond. Thank you guys for watching, and I should be posting some more videos as the off season rolls along.